lecture with you today. Rina.
Hello.
Rina Kurniati.
Hi.
Yeah, Rina
Good afternoon. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah. It is still morning in Germany.
Oh, morning.
Oh. Yes. It's very nice sunny morning, 10:30.
Yeah.
Finally, we got this beautiful weather, so like people are celebrating it. Winter was long and gray, and now it's nice.
Yeah.
Have you ever come to Indonesia, Nebojša?
No, unfortunately not, but I would love to. I would love to, especially because we had this long year collaboration with Diponegoro University, and many students are there, many colleagues. Would be nice to eventually.
Most welcome, Nebojša.
I was planning to come to this part of the world, you know, for some conferences, but then like the pandemic broke out, so then I had to stop it. But let's hope in the nearest future.
Yeah,
okay.
There are several students of you here. Like
yes, a lot.
Sometimes have you won reunion with Mrs. Swati or Miss Santi Paula in Indonesia, you can visit in Samara.
Yeah. We are still waiting until 100 students, but Intan or what?
Maybe if it's almost 90 students, maybe we can wait for 2 minutes more.
Sure.
So we can start it quickly.
Okay. Yeah.
So these are the students from the whole department or from the whole university? Or who is joining?
Yeah, actually there are 3 types of student: bachelor student, and also master student, and I think I don't know about the doctoral student,
Okay, nice.
But we already sent the invitation about this event today.
We also shared it on our social media.
Oh yeah.
We made nice promotion as well of the lecture series. I think it's a great topic and it's very necessary to talk about it.
Yeah, actually there are several lecturers here. Anang, Pak Anang Wahyu Sejati, Mas Anang, and also Prof. Nani Yulia Suti. Okay.
So,
Sorry, Bu Wati, the participants already reached 100.
Reach 100,
Maybe we can start, and Bu Novia, from Bu Novia. Thank you,
where is Bu Novia? Oh yeah, Bu Novia, Okay, please.
Can we start now, Mbak Intan? Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for all participants. For joining this event. And first of all, let's say thanks to God, who give us His guidance and mercy, so that we can attend and participate in this program without any obstacle. Okay, first let me introduce myself. My name is Novia Sari Ristianti, and I will be the host of this event in International Lecturer Series. And we will have the term of our ELS today. It is about urban heritage preservation. And we have 2 speakers in here. First is Mr. Nebojša Čamprag. Is it right? I spelling it, Mr. Nebojša?
Yes, perfect.
Mr. Nebojša as invited lecturer from Technische University Darmstadt, Germany. And we also have Ibu Rina Kurniati. Hello, Ibu Rina. Ibu Rina as host lecturer from Urban and Regional Planning Department, Diponegoro University, Indonesia. Okay, and now, before we will enter the main session of our ILS today, let me read our speaker's CV today, ya. Okay, Mbak Intan, please. Yeah, thank you, Mbak Intan. Yeah, first speaker is Mr. Nebojša. He is a guest professor of international urbanism at the Faculty of Architecture, Technische Universität Darmstadt, and he is the principal researcher of the research lab and networking platform on Urban Morphosis Lab, or UML, and his research focused in socio-economic and political transition, the built environment, and sustainable urban development. He's got a master's degree in contemporary architecture and urbanism from Novia University and urban development from Darmstadt University. He's got doctoral from Darmstadt University and postdoc in urban studies also from Darmstadt University. His publication in the track record of publication, including the chapter, monograph book, and peer-reviewed papers related to urbanism. Okay, I think this is enough for Mr. Nebojša curriculum vitae today. And then next, our second speaker is Ibu Rina Kurniati. Please share the screen, Mbak Intan. Yeah, Ibu Rina Kurniati, she is lecturer of Urban and Regional Planning Department, Diponegoro University, and the research scope are urban and regional planning, urban design, and urban heritage conservation. She got master's degree in urban and regional planning, Diponegoro University, and doctoral in architecture and urbanism, Diponegoro University. His publication record, including grant research, international reputable journal, and also book related to sustainable urban design and urban heritage context. Okay, now the next agenda is presentation, from our invited lecturer, Mr. Nebojša, and host lecturer Ibu Rina. And I will read the role for each speaker, have 40 minutes for presentation, and then we will continue with discussion. Discussion about our lecturer today, about 15 minutes. And okay, we will start lecturing today. Are you ready, Mr. Nebojša?
Yes, sure.
Yes, okay. Are you share screen by yourself?
Yes,
or
I have my presentation.
Okay, yeah.
I guess I can start.
Okay. Okay, you have 40 minutes, Mr. Nebojša, and the time is yours.
Thank you very much. So, first of all, thank you very much for this very nice introduction and for the warm welcome. It's like I almost feel like getting back home, because I know so many researchers and students in the Diponegoro University, and therefore I'm very excited for this opportunity, of course, to provide this lecture in this very interesting lecture series that are promoting this very important topic. And as Novia has already explained, my name is Nebojša Čamprag. I'm a guest professor from TU Darmstadt. And today, of course, I'm going to talk about urban heritage, but I would like to emphasize, first of all, that I've dealt a lot with urban heritage and cultural heritage in my research. However, I'm still an urban planner. I consider myself as an urban planner, and I'm focused on cities. So this is also my perspective and my approach to this problematic and this topic. Now, in the frames of today's lecture, as you can see on the screen, I'm going to talk about urban heritage in transformation. I'm referring here towards to actually transformations of cities and societies that we are currently going through. And I'm going to reflect on what kind of influences and implications and potentials does it have also for urban heritage and heritagization process, in which I'm going to emphasize on the one hand, this kind of a huge potential for sustainable urban development, but on the other hand, also this praxis of commodification of culture that is still present when we talk about manipulation and dealing with heritage in cities today. This is the plan for today. As you can see, I'm going to introduce the topic a little bit, then I prepared some kind of a very brief reflection from literature about this link between cultural heritage and sustainable urban development. However, I'm going to emphasize more in this presentation something else. I'm going to emphasize actually heritage being a political process, and then at the end, I'm going to provide a few examples from some kind of a phenomenon of commodification of cultural heritage and producing fake urban heritage for the sake of development, mostly in European cities, but not only. As an introduction, I've already stated that I'm, as a researcher, fascinated with this process of comprehensive transformation of that our cities and societies are going through, and this phenomena is getting so comprehensive that some cities, like in only a decade, are going through so many transformations that even their image and identity and even like historical backgrounds, memories are changing beyond some kind of recognition. And one of these examples, of course, are some cities from Asia. This is, of course, Shanghai, that everybody probably recognize. In a couple of decades, this city like totally changed and transformed like its appearance. Now, this has quite a lot of implications, of course, that I'm going to address along the lecture. But as a researcher, I'm interested in this period after this great shift, as I like to call it, that started with this industrial and economic crisis from the 70s and 80s, when we had this intensified intercity competition for capital and people in the context of globalized economy and increasing economic and social significance of consumption as a driver of urban development, as a kind of an introduction to this kind of consumption-oriented societies that we live in still today. And this also initiated some kind of shifts in urban governance. If I refer to Harvey back from the 90s, who stated that urban governances and urban policies saw a shift towards an entrepreneurial model, which is also known as this kind of post-industrial development model, which some of its resemblances we still have in the cities today. The response of urban planning and governance in this respect was, of course, like intensifying displaced marketing policies, but at the same time also promoting culture and consumption-led urban development strategies in cities. Now, for many cities in this period, starting from then till today, cultural policy actually became central element in restructuring of the economic basis. Scott even claimed that in post-Fordist economy, culture is even considered fundamental. And this remained out in today. Pattison and Miles, for example, stated we have seen rise of cultural and urban regeneration until today. And for this sake, there have been three main themes for a development and planning in consumption and entrepreneurial cities. So the first one was the reliance on the strong images that we have seen, especially starting from the 90s and especially during the 2000s, when we had quite a lot of these very goal-oriented interventions in the cities, when we had a booming of place marketing and branding policies and tools for development, when we had reliance on star architecture and urban regeneration that was using this kind of very strong images. Of course, it started all with this Bilbao miracle back in the last decades of 20th century, but many cities also copied and relied to this kind of development. The second element was a reliance on spectacle, and here I refer to urban mega events, where culture has been seen also as a crowd puller, as a kind of a starting point for development of cities. And the last one was memory. And this is also something that I'm going to focus a little bit more today. And when I say memory, of course, I'm talking about urban histories, I'm talking about urban heritage, I'm talking about all this kind of commodification and appropriation of memory for the reason of development of cities. Now, a brief reflection on this link between cultural heritage and sustainable urban development. We have seen that at the beginning of our century, many authors also emphasized the potential of heritage to serve as an important development resource or development asset in both consumption-oriented strategies and production-oriented strategies. And when I say consumption-oriented strategies, I refer to the potential of built heritage to create attraction to a city as a place. Of course, this is linked also to tourism industry and development of tourism industry. And also when I say production-oriented strategies, I refer here to heritage being an important element for creating this very attractive milieu of creativity and innovation that was particularly interesting for attraction of the creative class in the cities. Now, secondly, we also see in the heritage preservation also as a process having very important role, which was not only preserving physical fabric and sustaining cultural values, but was also increasingly seen as an incentive for enhancing cultural diversities in cities. That was also seen as an incentive for building up and maintaining local identity of the place, but also like a measure for ensuring a sustainable urban development. The recent trends are going towards expanding this developmental contribution of heritage beyond its traditional conception of heritage. So this is also evolving, of course, towards meeting more elements and aspects of sustainable economic and sustainable development, but also towards more participatory and inclusive so-called cultural heritage management, which is a relatively new trend that has the potential to provide a meaning and identity to communities and at the same time also make heritage preservation sustainable through material and intangible means of production. And the final goal, of course, is to improve the quality of life for the local population. Now, referring to some more recent sources, especially from the perspective of this very important and influential international heritage preservation institutions, such as, for example, ICOMOS. ICOMOS stated that heritage today, in its publication that is actually from the last year as a policy guidance for heritage and development actors, they stated that heritage is actually today seen not only as a driver, but also as an enabler of sustainability. And in this very interesting publication, they actually also elaborated a bit more about how preservation of heritage can contribute to all of these 17 sustainable development goals. And I'm not going to talk much about it. This publication is also, of course, online and available for download. I'm just going to focus on some aspects of how heritage can contribute to these two development goals that were emphasized also in this lecture series. The first one is, of course, this good health and well-being, in which heritage is seen to ensure proper provision of decent housing, taking into account opportunities for conserving and reusing built heritage. And here, for me, as a researcher, was extremely interesting this adaptive reuse of built heritage, which means that heritage is not a finite product, so to say. And the second aspect I would like to highlight here is that local communities are those who should decide whether some aspects of heritage need to be transformed or enhanced, which means that heritage is also susceptible to change and adaptation. The second sustainable development goal is even more interesting is number 11, sustainable cities and communities, that of course has what we already know so far, that the potential of heritage should be harnessed to enhance the cultures, identities, sense of belonging, to create job opportunities, to stimulate dialogue and encourage social inclusion. But what is interesting for me in the frames of this lecture is, first of all, that through this implementation of heritage for reaching the sustainable goal, we should understand and acknowledge the existence of different values that are attributed to heritage, which means that heritage can have different values for different groups, and that heritage also need to be protected from inappropriate urbanization and development processes. And here I'm talking also about not only like heritage for sustainable urban development, but I'm also talking about sustaining heritage as a resource itself. Here I would reflect to the World Monument Fund also from their publication from 2021, when they emphasized these three major global challenges for heritage preservation today, besides from, of course, like global pandemic that we had today. And the first challenge for heritage preservation was this imbalanced tourism, which has been seen as a double-edged sword in the cities. On the one hand, we wanted to use heritage to promote tourism and gain some adequate revenue out of it. But on the other hand, we also wanted to minimize the impact of the physical fabric or sense of place, which was sometimes very difficult because tourism development is hardly controllable process. So tourism development would often lead to some kind of growth that gentrifies the neighborhood, that is encouraging new development and forever changing the composition of local communities and the character of heritage. And here, World Monument Fund is advocating for more inclusive approaches to tourism development and for more reliance on digital tourism in order to bridge up this challenge. The second, of course, climate change. We have seen in recent years weather patterns changing around the globe, and many heritage sites have been developed to exist in a certain kind of locations with some kind of a climate circumstances, and this started to change, of course, and communities and the places of importance needed to adapt in order to survive. And the recommendation of World Heritage Site here is the need for more pragmatic strategies to safeguard our cultural heritage also from this challenge. And for me, the most interesting in the frames of this lecture is this underrepresented heritage, which emphasizes power and privilege as we're often tied to celebrated cultural heritage. And while the artistic achievement of heritage has been often promoted, the associated sacrifice was often ignored. So here we're talking about stories of servitude, subjugation, exclusion, or some kind of unwanted heritage, like, for example, industrial heritage, some aspects of it, or something like that. And here, of course, World Monument Fund is trying to encourage inclusion of diverse perspectives and narratives. This means, of course, that heritage is a highly political process, which I would like further to emphasize, especially in the context of this link between heritage and urban development. In getting back again to ICOMOS stated that both cultural and natural heritage sites, while under immense pressure from the impacts of urbanization, climate change, as we have seen already, and degradation due to other natural and human factors, still play a crucial role to support local economies, livelihoods, and quality of life in human settlements. And this is confirming this very strong bond between heritage and development for improving the livelihood and quality of life of people. And this has been proven, of course, in many sites all over the world. One such example would be also this Dresden Elbe Valley in the city of Dresden, which was promoting successfully the city as a city of culture and a city of tourism, which was also creating some revenue for the city. And this site was also inscribed on the list of World Heritage cultural landscape in 2004. However, the situation dramatically changed here. And this is also the question whether heritage sometimes is going against some present demands. With the construction of this bridge that was seen as necessary by the local government to ease the traffic congestion in the center of the city, in 2009, UNESCO was threatening to remove this site actually from the World Heritage List because the local government actually failed to keep its outstanding universal values as inscribed. So here, this tag of heritage would be removed, and the question here would be like, is it still heritage, right? Like, what happened with this kind of present day demands and sustaining heritage at the same time? And there are even more extreme examples of this kind of a conflict between heritage preservation and urban development in cities. One of also recent one is this example of Golden Horn metro bridge from Istanbul, for which the plans of construction have been approved by UNESCO, but were then changed without permission, and this bridge has been constructed. UNESCO then stated that it is disturbing the skyline of the city's historical area, and if constructed till the end, this bridge would Istanbul would be added to the list of World Heritage in danger and potentially completely excluded from the World Heritage site list. Now, here in this situation, extremely interesting was the reaction from the side of politicians and city planners, who stated that there must be a balance between preserving Istanbul's heritage, while at the same time also keeping traffic flowing. They stated that Istanbul is not just for the tourists, but people also live there. So it's about this kind of improving the quality of life again. Even more example, that is more extreme example is this, let's say some kind of investor, urbanism, Liverpool waters mega project in the Liverpool Docks. Also recent project that is a large scale project of £5.5 billion, redevelopment of derelict dock spaces, which were at the same time also like listed as World Heritage Site as well. And this project is foreseeing introduction of 9,000 apartments, hundreds of offices, hotels, bars, and cruise terminal in this part of Liverpool, with particularly problematic 2 clusters of skyscrapers and the highly controversial 55-story Shanghai Tower. As I said previously, these Liverpool Docks were also listed as a World Heritage Site in 2004 because of its being supreme example of a commercial port at the time of Britain's greatest global influence. However, in 2012, just because of this project that I previously introduced, this site has been listed on the list of World Heritage Site in danger. And again, here reaction from some kind of local politically active organizations. English Heritage, for example, stated that the proposed Liverpool project would leave the city's historic urban landscape permanently unbalanced. Save Britain's Heritage stated that losing this badge of World Heritage Site would be an international embarrassment and a hugely costly mistake. So again, here this kind of a tag of heritage and development was in some kind of a collision. Investors' reaction that was supported by the local government was that UNESCO status is just a badge on the wall and we cannot afford to fossilize our city. So these are just a couple of examples with which I wanted to illustrate this kind of like huge potential of heritage for development, but at the same time also this kind of quite challenging situation that this kind of situation can lead sometimes to. And here I would actually refer back to literature and actually back to Schroeder Esch's deliberation of heritage in order to understand actually what heritage is. And Schroeder Esch actually in 2006 defined a concept that involves 9 hypotheses of, as he stated, to deliberate heritage. And according to him, of course, heritage is not solely a cultural, but also potential for an important economic resource, as we have seen also previously. However, it is, according to him, a process of selection and ascribing importance. It is becoming even more popular, but its meanings are becoming less and less clear. For him, heritage doesn't exist. It is made in the present with a specific purpose, and it is based on some kind of rather selective and all-embracing principles. And finally, for Schroeder Esch, heritage preservation process is a signification, or heritagization is signification, better to say, that is based on variable and often very highly questionable criteria. So this is like making this question quite appropriate, like which heritage is heritage? And we need to have a deeper understanding of what heritage actually is if we want also to achieve sustainable urban development. And when we talk about this, I would like to highlight here a couple of very important aspects and questions before we even approach to some kind of preservation initiatives. This would involve this kind of a critical question about which heritage is actually heritage when deciding what should be preserved and how it should be preserved, which is even more important than the preservation process itself, this very, very first question. I would here quote Graham and Howard, who stated that the contents, interpretations, and representations of the heritage resource are selected according to demands of the present and in turn bequeathed to an imagined future. So there must be some kind of a reason for why is certain heritage a heritage. The second element that needs to be emphasized as well is actually this finite nature of built heritage. It's not permanent in its original state, of course, and this is why we are requiring preservation process. However, this preservation process was also criticized by many authors because it is actually replacing its components and materials over time. And over time, it will actually, through this kind of initiative, eventually get partially or completely renewed. So the question is, what is original and what is fake then in this kind of heritage preservation process? Will, for example, stated also that traditional building skills and techniques are changing and tend to eventually disappear. I would add here also some materials are also like disappearing or are very difficult to find as well. And we have seen also this problem with the finite nature of built heritage and the questions that have arisen after that. A couple of years ago, when there was this massive fire in one of the prime symbols of France and one of the global heritage sites as well, Notre Dame Church, that was, of course, inspired quite a lot of discussion and debates what should be done afterwards, because everything that is going to be constructed to imitate the previous situation is not going to be its original state, right? There was also the question of the available material, because it was not possible actually to find such long wood in order to construct this kind of a very massive spans of this roof, and so on and so on. This is like where I refer to this finite nature of built heritage and heritage preservation process in general. This is leading us back to this, something that I stated before, that heritage is a highly political process. There are quite a lot of stakeholders who are involved into decision-making, what constitutes as heritage, and which heritage should be preserved and which shouldn't be preserved. And here I would go back again to Graham and Howard, who stated something very interesting. They stated actually that historical physical configuration of modern cities, especially European cities, according to them, could be finally questioned as created, developed, and transformed by someone for some purpose, with the whole range of selection criteria regarding what is appropriate built heritage that deserves to be preserved from the past, which also makes, of course, its effects on the present and the future. They also stated that the creation of any heritage actively or potentially disinherits or excludes those who do not subscribe to or embrace with the terms of meaning attending that heritage. Taking a look at the present day situation, many authors emphasize that today cultural heritage is subjected actually to the rules of the market. When I say market, I also talk about tourism industry that is booming, of course, or was booming before the COVID pandemic. And the cultural industry at the same time, its mobilization of culture for urban development. Hetherington and Cronin, as an example, stated that heritage industry creates a condition of social amnesia rather than remembrance to these kind of processes. It packages past and present lived realities of cities as a spectacle to be consumed now. So this very present moment is making this kind of decisions of what we are going to preserve for the future. What do we need actually for this present moment as well? And this is actually bringing us further to this discussion about the commodification of cultural heritage, of a cultural heritage as a commodity that should be packed, sanitized, sold for some kind of purposes, right? Usually of some kind of development. In order to understand that, I'm referring back to this discussion about the finite nature of built heritage. I'm referring back to the process that was also explained by Graham and Howard. I'm talking here about this filtration of heritage, this kind of deciding what is needed to be preserved and what is not, what is important, what is not. And Ashford, for example, stated that the built heritage of European cities has been filtrated through these processes over time by two major processes. The first one is eradication of heritage, and the second was museumification process, both of which actually are not new processes, and both of which contributed that urban landscapes are generally reduced of its original meanings. Now, getting back to the example of Dresden, I would like to illustrate this eradication of heritage phenomena. This is Frauenkirche in Dresden, one of the major landmarks of the city. This landmark has been destroyed during the Second World War. It was bombed. It was nearly totally destroyed, as you can see later, also reconstructed in a quite, I would say, appropriate way according to some kind of heritage preservation and reconstruction rules. You can see what is the original part. You can see what is the reconstructed part. But at the end, we have a new building that resembles on something that was there before. And this eradication of heritage process implies this destruction or disappearance of artifacts, spaces, buildings, and elements that has occurred either involuntarily or voluntarily. It can be a consequence of an earthquake, but it can be also like a consequence of war, let's say, if we want to erase certain memories. A lot of examples of eradication that can be seen in cities all over the world. As I said, it can be also voluntary destruction and degradation, especially when we talk about unwanted or contested heritage. Classical examples, Bamiyan Buddhas in Afghanistan that were destroyed, of course, because at that point from this Talibani government, it was something that was not desirable heritage, that was not creating desired identities and was not referring to desired memories for the society at that time. Or, for example, another classical example, socialist heritage that has never been really properly evaluated, it has never been properly preserved. And here we see Petrovagora Memorial, that is a sculpture by a very famous international artist. And just because of this kind of association with some kind of memories that were not that desired in some new constructs of the former Yugoslavia, this heritage has never been preserved and it's left to decay, as you can see on this picture, and as a source of secondary material. This process also happens in Western cities, in contemporary societies, through urban regeneration, through mega projects, through new developments in cities where, of course, there is a decision process decision-making process, political process that is deciding what is heritage that can contribute to development, what is not needed, what is reusable and what not. At the end, we have some kind of of course, adapted and changed meanings of these sites at the end. The second process, museumification of heritage, more recent than eradication, I would say, which implies this shift in the function and the form of artifacts, spaces, buildings, and elements that has occurred on purpose. So this is a purposeful initiative in order to transform some meanings and conserve shammata, to use it for contemporary purposes. Of course, here we are talking about the tourist and economic resources, or to support national identities. Typical examples, again, from Germany, the Zollverein, former industrial heritage that has been totally like refigured to serve as a public park. I'm not saying, of course, I'm not claiming that this process is always negative. I'm just like highlighting this process. I'm just highlighting this kind of selective political approach in deciding what is heritage and what is appropriate for development, urban development and social development. Second example, of course, like changes of buildings and forms and functions of Hagia Sophia that was changing its purpose quite a lot of times just because of the actual social and political needs of the society. Now, currently, we are also facing these rapid technological advancements that I previously mentioned. We are facing also this booming development of information and communication technology that are also having impact on further growth of the tourism industry, which can have some positive outcomes, but also some negative outcomes as well. And this rise of information and communication technologies for the heritagization process opened up endless possibilities. On the one hand, for transformation and promotion of the old cultural values in a different way. And on the other hand, this can also result sometimes in some very positive examples. In other cases, these examples are or have been in the focus of many discussion and debates. And here I'm referring actually to the phenomenon of production of heritage. This is something that also stems from the late 90s that has been in the boom in many cities all over the world since the construction of this city of celebration in Florida in the US. That was urban development initiative by Walt Disney Company. And here we're talking about this process of Disneyfication of cities, about the misuse of historical architectural interpretation, but looking back into some kind of ideal coulisses of the European city that often used to construct motifs and settings that would, of course, attract tourist attention. And this, as I said, initiatives are originated from the big projects of the entertainment industry that are expanding from the US American cities also to other contexts, other global contexts. So here I would reflect in order to explain a little bit these phenomena to Kohlhaas, first of all, who stated that these post-industrial cities are becoming junk spaces of capitalist accumulation. So we have different kind of interpretations of heritage. We have different kinds of approaches to urban development. We have different kinds of inclusion of heritage and some kind of association with heritage in this kind of development policies. Cronin and Hetherington, for example, stated that the idea of future, in this sense, collapsed in the idea of simultaneous present. The past, in this case, is called on to enrich the seeming cultural vacuity or seamness of a present that has no sense of either history or future. And in this kind of a atmosphere of cultural vacuity and this kind of absence of kind of a time, let's say, conservation is becoming even more urgent as a measure of the cultural significance of this space without time, according to these authors. Now, can we talk about place identity crisis? Some authors are reflecting on that. In general, we have seen commodification of city experience also through usage of heritage and landmarks into marketable items, something that is intended to be sold for someone to gain some kind of outcomes, to gain some kind of economic growth. And the critical perspective on this commodification of city experiences through these kind of initiatives was regarding, of course, its hardly controllable social and economic effects that it produces, the rewriting of meanings that are attached to urban environments, original meanings, let's say, and the general conclusion is that this is, of course, a highly contested process. I would add highly political process that often even masks some social and ethnic and class and gender polarizations by mobilizing aesthetic power of image and illusion. Now let us take a look at some fake urban heritage resulting from these kind of phenomena. And this is something I would like to illustrate to like depart a little bit from this heavy reliance on academic sources, just to provide maybe an example in order to understand a little bit better all these processes and the introduction of this idea of heritage in some kind of urban development schemes. And the example is actually from here, from Germany again, from Frankfurt. Frankfurt Altstadt reconstruction. Altstadt is an old city, the historical core of the city that has been called the newest old city in the world, according to this newspaper here, Die neueste Altstadt der Welt, in the very core of Frankfurt. And in order to understand this initiative, we have to take a look back in time, of course, in the 1944, when this relatively well preserved, one of the biggest Gothic cities of Germany has been burned to the ground as a result of the Second World War bombing in Frankfurt. And most of these nice houses have been constructed in a very like dense manner with the use of traditional materials, which was wood, which of course was a very unfortunate situation when the bombing happened. And you can see on this picture from 1949 that nearly, I mean, better to say, the whole historical city center of Frankfurt has been literally destroyed. There were maybe a couple of buildings that remained on its place that were constructed of stone, like this couple of churches that you can see. So a total disaster, total deconstruction, let's say. Of course, the question, what should be done with it? How should the people and the city government approach this very difficult problem of reconstruction or intervention in this site? Nothing actually happened till 1974 when some kind of first intervention started. And the decision was made, okay, let's not build something that cannot be rebuilt in its original form. That would be like very odd initiative. Let's simply like improve the quality of life for people. And in this sense, what they did is they provided some infrastructure improvements, underground garages, or I don't know, like several underground lines, as you can see on these pictures. And this kind of a city hall, new city hall, this technical city hall has been constructed here from concrete building, a modernist building that has been also awarded for its some kind of innovative design later.
So
now we had,
yeah. You have 10 minutes left here.
Sorry, I cannot hear.
I'm so sorry, you have 10 minutes left, okay, for your presentation time.
How many? 5 minutes?
10 minutes left. 10 minutes left.
10 minutes, yes, perfect.
Yeah.
That's going to be enough. So regarding some first initiatives for reconstruction, the first initiative actually happened on the Roma Berg, which is this historical city center of Frankfurt, which is a place where also this Roma or City Hall of Frankfurt has been located. And in order to preserve and to kind of preserve some kind of a link with this kind of historical memory of the city, what was conserved was the facade, only the main facade of the City Hall, and this Ostzeile houses that resembles on some kind of historical architecture that was maybe enough to like give back this historical ambience to this historical city square. But on the other hand, we are talking here about totally modern buildings constructed of concrete that just resemble from the outside on some kind of nice wooden traditional German houses. We are talking here about totally modern buildings also from inside as well. In the meanwhile, Frankfurt developed its skyline. As you may know, it became one of the most important global cities, most important global financial players, and so on, which was quite negative for the city's image. It got its image as a cold financial city that no one actually wanted to visit. But on the other hand, we have this booming of tourism industry, and the city government also wanted to get maybe something out of that as well. As a consequence, we had this kind of a rise of tourists of course, with the construction of this international airport in Frankfurt, etc. And many tourists were coming actually to see this former historical city center. And for them, it was not important whether these buildings were reconstructed or originals. They were actually giving them what they actually wanted to get, what they expected from this city. They wanted this kind of historical feeling. They wanted to participate maybe on some kind of cultural events organized there, such as this Christmas market, very famous in Germany. Now, as a result, we had, of course, this heritage from the 70s that was not really wanted any longer, this former concrete technical city hall has been destroyed with its rising initiatives for redevelopment of the old city. The building was totally, as you can see, destroyed. No matter of its architectural qualities from the past, it has never been actually evaluated or considered as a heritage from the 70s, which is very typical also for many European cities. In the following reconstruction period of the historical city, past has been seen as a resource, of course, because this old historical city has been well documented, as you can see on this very detailed model still to be seen in the city museum. And so first initiatives were from this KSP Architekten office was actually to build up some buildings, modern buildings that would simply like restore this historical street and square network of the old historical city. However, we had, as I said, it was a very political process. What should be preserved? What should be reconstructed? We had a very strong influence of non-governmental organizations that were advocating in the frames of this Dom Roma project that was intending to reconstruct this historical center of Frankfurt for more reconstructions. And this actually happened. We had quite a lot of these creative replicas that would, from outside at least, replicate these historical designs. Inside, we're talking about modern buildings with elevators, with anti-fire protection, with everything that you need for a modern building, of course, that also need to be sold, of course, and gain some profit out of it. On the other hand, we have these historical inspired new designs. Many architects were invited from Germany and internationally to give their own interpretations of these historical buildings. And this is like the final result. Let's say these are visualizations of the project. You can see here a mixture between some reconstructions and new designs that is giving the tourist at the end what they actually expect to see, if you want to say. And this initiative was, of course, very, very highly supported by a group of involved citizens, but also by the local tourist organization. Now, the problem for reconstruction of this project was that while they were like destroying, removing the debris from the bombing, they discovered some even older layers of history in the city. This is the so-called Archaeological Garden with some excavations from Roman times even, and from older times than the actual old city itself on the site as well. So there was the question what to do then with this kind of genuine heritage in order to construct something that is new and that resembles something from a particular historical period. Quite a difficult situation that caused quite a lot of debate and political involvement. This is how the problem has been solved with the construction of this new old design, some kind of a new design that resembles something old, but this building doesn't have any reference to any particular building that was standing there. These buildings have been constructed on top, so this kind of archaeological garden is still accessible from the ground floor, of course. Few pictures from the implementation. You can see important modern technology, modern materials, opening of the project after 6 years of construction and skyrocketing, of course, cost of 200 million euros. That inspired a whole new trends, let's say, in the environment. Like this is a historical museum in Frankfurt, close to the old city center that was also a building, concrete building from the 70s that was destroyed in order to construct something that is more appropriate for this kind of historization of the old city of Frankfurt. It's totally, of course, a new building without any reference to historical period. And you can see this kind of a trend that also spilled to other parts of the city. This is, for example, opera house of the city that is now like there are quite a lot of strong voices for redevelopment of the old facade, as you can see here. And we can talk about also like about the nationwide initiative of creating this kind of fake heritage that resembles something that was standing there before. We had Palast der Republik, for example, in Berlin, which was associated to the socialist times, which was not considered as heritage, although genuine, it was destroyed. And then we have the construction of this Berlin castle that was supported by a very, very strong group of citizens that had quite a lot of influence and, of course, quite a lot of money coming from different stakeholders. This is how the project looks now. You can see that not all the facades have been reconstructed. Some are left for some kind of modern interpretations. Even further thinking about this way, we have fake heritage, something that has been constructed in cities that actually doesn't have any reference to any kind of historical period or any kind of memory in the city. And this is an example, for example, Skopje, capital of North Macedonia. that was destroyed in the earthquake, that was partially reconstructed by the Kenzo Tange Skopje master plan from the 60s, that was, of course, implementing this kind of a new modernist city. However, with independence from Yugoslavia, this country wanted, of course, its own historical identity with the implementation of the mega project Skopje 2014. This is the result. We are not talking about historical buildings. We are talking about new buildings that were finished and monuments just a few years ago, including this Triumphal Gate that is a new building. So this process is not new. I would remind you on Las Vegas that is also working on this kind of landmarks, historical landmarks, replicating them, creating some kind of attraction for some kind of visitors and tourists. We have seen also this trend spilling to China even. This is a little Paris constructed also quite recently. However, you can see that the context is totally different. The usage of these spaces, the usage of this area is of course different than original Paris, let's say. Even more extreme example, the reconstruction of the whole city of Hallstatt from Austria. This is also UNESCO World Heritage Site that has been totally let's say, replicated in the other side of the planet in China. Another project under development, Dubai, in Dubai, Falcon City World of Wonders, which is even more extreme example of this kind of investor urbanism for gaining some profit that is mobilizing some kind of historical landmarks out of any kind of spatial context. So I would now finish for now. I think we have quite a lot of material also for an input for discussion. I would just finish with this question, getting back to the debate, whose heritage is to be preserved, promoted, included in some kind of development schemes, in order also to remember you that heritage is a highly political process and phenomena. So that would be from my side. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Nebojša, for nice presentation. Okay, next we will continue to the second speaker, from Ibu Rina Kurniati. Are you ready, Ibu Rina?
Okay, this is Novia. I would share screen.
Okay, Bu Rina, you have 40 minutes, Ibu, to presentation. Okay. Yeah, the time is yours, Ibu.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Novia, as moderator, and thank you to the ILS participant who joined at this time, because it's still in the time of Sawal. I say happy Eid Mubarak, minal aidin wal faizin. Also to Mr. Nebojša, who has given presentation material on urban heritage in transformation. It is very interesting and useful for us. On this occasion, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Rina Kurniati, a lecturer at Department of Urban and Regional Planning, Diponegoro University, as stated by Ms. Novia. Okay, the material that I will present is the result of research I conducted for 2 years on climate-sensitive urban design in the public space of heritage preservation and case study in Alton of Samara. The location of my research is in the city's public space in the cultural heritage area in Semarang. There are actually 2 research locations, namely the Alton area and Chinatown. But on this occasion, I presented for the location of Alton of Samara as one of the tourist destinations that are very crowded to visit today. Okay, I divide this presentation into 3 parts. One, introduction consists of background, Alton of Samara history, heritage regulation, climate-sensitive urban design, and two result of research consists of Alton condition, GSUD condition, GSUD perception, and GSUD simulation. And in 3, research finding consists of research finding and conclusion. An introduction and background of study. Why this research is important? because the phenomenon of climate change has been taking place throughout the world and greatly affect various aspects, including the thermal comfort of a public space as a forum for community activities. We can see a map of land use distribution. It can be seen the color red is a built-up area that continues to grow, reducing the green area. Then on the temperature distribution map, it can be seen that in the built-up area, especially downtown Semarang in the north, it once reached the highest temperature of up to 40 degrees Celsius. It was very hot. The increase in built-up area in Semarang in the last 10 years reached 13%, with the most land use change being the conversion of green or agricultural areas. This condition certainly triggered an increase in surface temperature in Semarang city to 22 until 40 degrees Celsius in 2018. And the average surface temperature is only in the range of 18 until 33 degrees Celsius. The average temperature of Semarang city is in the uncomfortable category because more of 27 degrees Celsius to the widespread conversion of green areas. Okay. Background of study in the Alton of Samara, we can see the figure or picture from CCTV online in Alton of Samara. We can see image of activity in the Alton of Samara during the day with a temperature of 37 degrees Celsius and at night at 30 degrees Celsius. The density of visitor activity occurs in the afternoon to evening. We can see the difference in this image from the online CCTV installed in the Alton area. During the day with hot temperature, not as busy as night. Moreover, the Alton area is a popular tourist destination in the city of Samara. During the last Eid Mubarak holiday, the Alton of Samara became a tourist destination with the highest number of tourists and #1 in Central Java, short from Tourist and Culture Office, Central Java in 2022. And we can see temperature condition affect outdoor activities, such as in Alton of Samara. Okay, we can see climate-sensitive urban design system in building, neighborhood, and city. It's necessary to adjust the landscape design of public space that are adaptive to the climate. Urban design with a climate-sensitive approach or climate-sensitive urban design is one of the concepts in planning and designing areas that are responsive to climate elements and become an approach that refer to the issue of sustainable development. And mitigation efforts through regional redesign are carried out to adjust the design elements of the city design that can adjust to the increasingly hot temperature condition. We can see sample green public space in urban area. It's necessary to adjust the landscape design of public space that are adaptive to the climate. The Alton of Semarang, we can see this is Indonesia and Central Java. This is in Central Java. This is Semarang City, and this is Semarang City. Location of Semarang, Alton of Semarang city. We can see the main road is Legend Suprapto in the Alton of Samara, and we can see building in the main road Legend Suprapto in Station 1, Spiegel Building, Station 2, Sri Gunting Park, Station 3, Marba Building, and Station 4, Indonesian Trade Ltd. The Alton of Samara is a cultural heritage consisting of many colonial architectures on an area of 33 hectares. This area is referred to as the Little Netherlands because of many historical buildings in the Dutch colonial style and the distinctive history of its formation. There are 245 buildings in the area, and 177 are privately owned, and 68 are owned by companies, public or private, and 105 buildings have been conserved. We can see the map. There are 4 maps. Sunan Amangkurat to hand over the city of Semarang in return for his agreement with the VOC, which was handed over on October 5, 1705. After the VOC got the city of Semarang, then a city was formed, which was surrounded by a fort in the form of a 5 stars, and was named the Hollander, or later referred to as Little Netherlands. On the map of 1719, there is a fortress called Witchhoek, which was used as a residence for Dutch citizens and a military center at the time. And then the map of 1741 began to be built building outside the fortress for settlement, for trade and offices. And the map of 1866 of the built up area expanding towards the south and west. And the 1917 map shows the built up area with many red buildings. We can see climate sensitive urban design. Climate sensitive urban design is a combination of climatology and urban design, and GSUD criteria, solar illuminance, wind speed, and temperature with urban scale. And two main principles, namely the urban environment and the building within it. Result of research. Heritage building in the Alton of Samara. We can see, there is 245 heritage building that has different use in the Alton of Samara. Requirement for the cultural heritage development process based on law number 11 of 2010. Pay attention to the reliability of materials, shape, layout, style, and all processing technique. And pay attention to its original condition with as few changes as possible. And use of non-destructive technique, methods, and materials. Pay attention to implementation capabilities in the fields of restoration or development. The policy about the conservation of the Alton areas has been stated in the Semarang City Regulation number 2 of 2020, August 5 on 2020, concern urban design guideline or RGBL of the Semarang Alton. We can see this map. This is A, Belenduk Church, and B, 3D Museum area, C, Spiegel Building, and D, Marba Building, and E, Manat Heights Building. This is a distribution of heritage building in the Alton of Semarang. Alton condition. We can see typical Dutch building have an average height of 8 to 10 meters. Some buildings have canopies and minimal greening or lack of vegetation in the Alton areas has implication for the low level of thermal comfort of other activities. The high tourist visit occur during the weekend, especially along the Legend Suprapto corridor. This is from CCTV view. And the high visit in the afternoon to evening. You can see the diagram. In the weekend, the people until 557. And the condition of CSUD sample location for data collection occur at 4 main street point of Legend Suprapto, Station 1, Spiegel Building, Station 2, Circumdent Park, Station 3, Marba Building, and Station 4, Indonesian Trade Ltd. Station 4 has the lowest air temperature, and the condition of the CSUD in this case is seen from the supporting component of the thermal humidity index or THI in this figure. The THI simulation process is carried out using supporting applications such as ArcGIS to interpolate air temperature based on 4 sample point of temperature and data retrieval like this, Station 1, Station 2, and Station 3, and Station 4. The THI result then form the basis of interpolation calculation on the ArcGIS application and produce the THI map with high and low interpolation scales. We can see figure. To support the CSUD condition analysis process and overlay method with regional air temperature data capture point its use, which is symbolized using the blue dot in the map. In addition, the wind direction component is also added to show the influence of the wind in supporting the formation of the element of the Alton area. It generally consists of the east wind direction, light blue arrow, and the northeast, and the northeast wind direction, gray arrow. This is because the HI, air temperature, and wind flow are some of the main components that can support the CSUD analysis process of area. We can see in the Tawang Polders area. Tawang Polders area, the temperature is high at 32 degrees Celsius because during the day it evaporates, but in the afternoon the temperature decreases. CSUD condition, you can see many activity occur in the Circumdent Park in Station 2 and Indonesian Trade Ltd in Station 4. And the thermal comfort, you can see the high level of comfort is also at Taman Sri Kunden or Sri Kunden Park and Indonesian Trade LTD. This is activity and this is thermal comfort. GSUD condition. We can see figure A is the result of simulating the number of shadow generated using the Ecotech application with the aim of knowing the difference in the percentage of shadow produced at 9:30 AM and 12:30 PM and 4 PM. Then figure B explain the relationship of the percentage of the projection with the position of the sun and the projection that occur at the existing existing location with simulation using the SketchUp application. The overall result was obtained at 9:30 AM. The sun was in the direction of 50 degrees east, with the number of shadow produced reaching 19%. Well, at 12:30 PM, the direction of the sun is almost perpendicular to the head or 18 degrees, with a shadow produced as much as 0%. It means no shadow. Then at 4 PM, the sun is in the direction of 60 degrees west, with the high projection reaching 58%. At this time, outdoor activity are most comfortable to do. We can see some existing buildings already have canopies that have produced shadow. GSUD perception. We can see in this table the process of assessing people or visitors' perception of climate condition in the Alton area. Use the Likert scale spread through questionnaires. The scale used consists of very good, value 5, good, value 4, enough, value 3, and not good, value 2, and very not good, value 1. The initial state is to classify the result of respondent assessment based on the scale shown on the table with orange writing. And we can see this is to visit in the evening. The air temperature in the Alton of Samara is considered to be still less comfortable according to the perception of visitors, especially during the day. This is perception from 40 respondents. And the addition of vegetation such as hanging plant and shade trees is most recommended by visitors to be implementation in the Alton of Samara. We can see 3.6, 4.5, 3.9, and 4.3 from Likert formula. So is the calculation of Likert with on scale on and other variables. The overall weight result of its scale are then used to determine the average value of each variable from air temperature, air quality, and health factors. And this slide explains result from 40 respondents, and we can see application of hydroponic plants along the pedestrian ways, like this. And in figure A, hanging and pot plant before and after. In figure B, we can see plants and set plants. And figure C, hydroponic plants, and figure D, hanging plant in corridor. This is a GSUD perception from respondent. The simulation process is carried out. It's carried out using the SketchUp application to show solar radiation modeling of the addition of vegetation or shadow of object. In this case, two levels of simulation are carried out, namely case 1 and case 2. The base is an existing condition that exists today in the Alton of Samara. The simulation sample use points around Sri Kunting Park and Pelenduk Church in case 1. In case 1, 10% of set vegetation was added from the sample area with a tree header with a diameter of 20 meters. The result of radiation simulation resulting in the form of a decrease in the high radiation and red area as much as 15% of the initial condition. While in case 2, added vegetation 30% of the total area of the sample point with a mixed tree header between 10 meters and 20 meters in diameter. As a result, the effect of high levels of solar radiation in red area decreased by 30%, and we can see radiation level down 30%. The simulation is one form visualization of the relationship resulting from the addition of vegetation based on the highest value of previous visitor perception to reduce the effect of heat on the area, one of which is by solar radiation. Sorry, this is and GSUD simulation. We can see this is the result of the analysis of the correlation between the dependent variable, namely solar radiation, and independent variable, namely the projection of object. We can see significant value in 0.010, which is smaller than 0.05. This proves that the result of the correlation carried out are valid and can be used for further analysis visible. The result of correlation between variable can be seen from the resulting t value. Okay, and GSUD simulation. This is from the table. Adding 1% shadow area will increase the area with moderate to low radiation level by 1.137%. Oh, sorry. And the last my presentation is a finding the climatic condition. The climatic condition of public space in the Alton of Samara are still not comfortable. especially during the day. The addition of vegetation, such as hanging and shade plants, is highly recommended. The addition of shade vegetation can help reduce the hot climate in the Alton of Samara, and the addition of 1% shadow area will increase the area of moderate to low radiation level by 1.137%. In conclusion, from this research, the Alton of Semarang, as one of the historic public space in the city of Semarang, has problem with climatic conditions that create inconvenience for activities during the day. On the other hand, its function as a cultural heritage area causes the physical development of the area to be very limited, so as not to change the landscape and historical buildings. Therefore, an alternative that can be done by structuring vegetation and visitor activities. Although in its implementation, there are many things that need to be considered. And empty land areas can be used to optimize the presence of vegetation. I think this is my presentation about my research in 2 years, and this is a reference for this based on for this presentation. And thanks. Sorry if many or it's delaying time. Hopefully this material will be useful for participants. And thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, thank you very much, Ibu Rina, for a nice and interesting presentation. Yeah, okay. Next it's time to discussion. Yeah, we will have 2 sessions for discussion, and each session will contain 2 questions from the participant. You can ask to Mr. Nebojša or Ibu Rina about the material today. You can ask by raise your hand and open your camera, and then talking and mention or address your question to who. Or you can ask by meeting chat, and also please mention your name and institution. And don't forget to address your question to whom speaker, for Nebojša or for Ibu Rina. Okay. Okay, we have in here, yeah. Okay, there are Pak Anang, Wahyu Sejati, and Ibu Santi Paula Dewi. Okay, maybe first Pak Anang.
Okay, thank you, Bu Novia. The question is proposed to Mr. Nebojša Čamprag, Prof. Nebojša. Very nice and very interesting presentation, Prof. And I just want to discuss about about the recent discussion in Germany about low-cost archiving or digital archiving in historical site or historical building in Germany. I would like to know about the recent discussion in Germany and recent technology that used in the Germany. Thank you, Prof. Nebojša.
Thank you for the question. I don't really know about this a lot. What I know is that digital technology, for example, has been used more recently to reconstruct the buildings actually that were destroyed also the Second World War, because we know that many buildings have been destroyed in Germany during the Second World War, also in Europe. And among the first one, unfortunately, to be destroyed and to be totally eradicated from this kind of a historical layer of German cities were synagogues before the Second World War, actually. And there is a research project that I know that my colleagues are working on, which is actually based exactly on that, on reconstructing these buildings, on providing some kind of 3D digital models, on reviving these historical objects that will be very difficult to reconstruct back in their physical form, but they're like reconstructing them in a 3-dimensional form, and they're making it available for public to like actually also go inside these buildings and take a look at it, how it was there before. So this kind of reconstruction is happening, and digital technology is used for that. Other than that, I must say that I'm not really into that topic. I don't know.
Yeah, thank you, Prof. Nebojša. And then about the use of IoT in the urban historical site. What about that in Germany? From the recent discussion, I guess the IoT for historical site is very rare in Indonesia that we use the technology in implementation of IoT. Can you explain the detail or maybe the applied version of yours or your research in Germany?
About the information communication technologies, or what are you referring to?
Yeah, about the implementation of IoT, that your several slides about IoT in historical site, yes, for technology.
Yeah, well, this is something that I already mentioned for now. And for example, what I know is that during the pandemic, especially this information and communication digital technologies were extremely like promoted also by these important global institutions and authorities in order like not to let heritage and tourism die. So this kind of a digital heritage and digital promotion was very, very active at this period. And also like now we also see this these good sides of this digital world when we can also like organize these kind of interesting sessions from different geographical locations. But let's see how the future is going to go further about it. I'm very, very curious about it, especially when we talk about digital tourism, especially when we talk about the dangers of overexploitation of heritage, which is also a consequence of tourism, which is very difficult to put under some kind of sustainable measures, because tourism development and tourism outcomes are very difficult to control. You cannot limit that easily the number of how many people are going to come to a certain site to visit and to see. And there, in order to make it more inclusive, I guess the response would be also digital tourism.
Yes. Thank you, Prof. Nebojša, for your explanation. It's very interesting. And I guess hopefully in the next time we can collaborate the research about digital technology in urban historical site. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nebojša and Pak Anang and Mr. Jati. Okay, we move to next question. Okay, maybe we will look at column chat. Okay, there is from Ibu Wakidah Kurniati. Yeah, she asked about what is the model to accommodate all new historical area, and is it the coexistence of all new historical layers or strict separation between them? Thank you. It is addressed for Mr. Nebojša.
Yeah, this is, thanks. I've just read also, I think this question is from the chat. Thank you also for writing in chat and for having these questions and nice words. This is also a very interesting and relevant question, highly relevant. However, I think that the response to that, this should not be looked for in this black and white solutions. It's in this kind of a gray scale, let's say. I would say that we are building a lot, we are producing a lot, and everything that we are constructing today, maybe in 50 or 100 years, is going to probably go through some kind of evaluation, whether this is a heritage, whether this should be preserved for the future or not. And I think the obvious conclusion of that is that we cannot preserve everything, that there must be some kind of selection criteria, that city is a living organism, and that's this kind of a strict separation of what is heritage and what is not, what should be preserved for the future and what not, what is historical area and what is not, is maybe something that is not that sustainable. I'm not saying that we should construct in the middle of some heritage preserved sites, but some kind of compromising is definitely necessary. And I've spoken before about heritage preservation, heritagization as a process of subscribing this value is a highly political process. It's about including as many stakeholders as possible. It's about listening to many different needs, many different sides that are involved into use of this kind of heritage sites, into many different stakeholders that at the end also construct us as society, that construct the city as a highly complex construction. So I would say the future is in dialogue, the future is in inclusion, the future is in diversities, and the future is also not rejecting something that is new just because it is new. So there must be some kind of a compromise, there must be some kind of political discussion about that. There is a nice example of, for example, of some cities that are very, very liberal when it comes to construction in the historical environment. And there is also the opposite ones as well. And I must say that I was very enjoying my visit to some cities, for example, is in the Netherlands, when they're making quite a nice compromising in historical environment as well. They're getting the best out of it, I would say, through this very liberal approach to bridging this gap between historical environment and some kind of new needs of contemporary society. So as I said, this kind of a solution is probably in this kind of not really black or white, but like in a compromising and political approach in this kind of a gray area. I hope this answered the question.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Nebojša.
Yeah.
Okay,
thank you, Ibu Adita and Mr. Nebojša. Okay, we will move to next session about our discussion. Yeah, maybe from our participant. Okay. Oh, Bu Santi Paula.
Santi Paula.
Yeah, thank you. sorry. Yeah, thank you, Mbak Novia, for your for the time. Previously, thank you for Nebojša for your impressive lecture. Actually, I have to a comment and also a question. The first one is, like you mentioned previously, that nowadays urban heritage considered as a commodity, right? But you know, however, if you want to conserve the urban heritage, it needs much money, right? So the possible things to how to conserve this is make the urban conservation as a tourism site or this tourism attraction. So do you think that in the future these things will be still mutated in the future, or this is the only way how to conserve the heritage itself, by selling them, of course, how they can gain money, of course. Yeah. And the second one is about your question, actually, that urban heritage conservation for whom, like nowadays some of the local government, our local government, try to register the asset, the urban heritage asset, as listed as a UNESCO heritage asset, right? And then after what next? Yeah, after it already registered as a UNESCO heritage asset, what next? Will we get the benefit from this? Because after it already listed as a UNESCO asset, so many regulations, yeah, that should be obeyed by the government and also the community. Even the community cannot do something that they want, yeah. So finally, they cannot get some benefit from this, yeah. So it is also. Do you think that the same situation also occur in the Europe or perhaps in Germany? Even in Samara, also actually, our government tried to register the Alton as one of the UNESCO heritage assets, but yeah, some of another activities another activities beside the tourism actually also start to think that they have to move from the Alton. I think this is a question or perhaps impression from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Santi, for very interesting questions. They're very relevant, and I'm going to try to pack them in one answer because I think they're also they seem diverse and different, but they're also very connected. And I would say that, of course, this process and approach to how to preserve and what to do with preserved heritage schemes is changing and adapting to the needs of time. And it's a process, like everything else, like sustainability is also very, very complex. How can I say? It's also changing as we are learning more about it. As we are changing in society, we are adapting the concept of sustainability. The same we are doing with the concept of heritage. We are adapting it also to the changes of the society. And I would say, I mentioned previously this kind of a trend towards going from pure like preservation as it is of heritage towards cultural heritage management. So this preservation is also tending to go towards this management of heritage preservation, which means that preservation itself is not that important any longer, just to preserve and leave something as it is. Then what happens with that? Is that sustainable to preserve something, not to ascribe to this kind of a preserved scheme some kind of a new role that is adapted to the needs of the present societies? And this is exactly what this approach towards cultural heritage management is trying to do. And there's very, very nice examples, for example, from the UK, especially from the NGO level, especially they're extremely powerful even in the policy making, national policy making, how to deal with, how to manage cultural heritage. They even own, as NGOs, their own heritage, and they're like including it into not only preservation schemes, but also this kind of cultural management schemes, when they're using it also to like include the local population in some kind of a creative workshops, or I don't know, some kind of a organizations, manifestations that would mobilize this heritage, that would bring some kind of funds for further preservation of this heritage, because preservation is costly. It costs a lot of money, and before it was even a burden for local communities. Regarding the UNESCO badge or a tag, of course, like everybody like want to get this tag of UNESCO because, and I don't know, I was quite surprised that most of my students also believe that once you get a UNESCO tag, that you also get the money for preservation. And this is a guarantee that something is going to be super great preserved. And this is like something that remains forever and stuff. But this is not the case. The case is that UNESCO is just providing this list. And the list is, of course, a very prestigious one. You gain the right to promote your heritage site as a World Heritage Site, but at the end, responsibility is on the local community. Responsibility is again on this kind of a political process. How do you engage these newly tagged UNESCO World Heritage Site, let's say, into some kind of development schemes? How do you include it into some kind of production-oriented activities? How do you commodify it at the end in order to sustain it? And usually when you get a tag of international importance, then it's kind of theoretically easier to also get some kind of funding for it. And this is how it functions. Of course, like everything is at the end on the local communities, how they organize, how they politically engage for including these sites into some kind of heritage management schemes, I would say. So this is how I see this thing. I hope that it replies your question.
Yeah. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you very much, Ibu Sandi and Mr. Nebojša. We will move to next question. Yeah, maybe from the chat box. It is from Kevin. Kevin will ask about the financial context of heritage conservation. Yeah, it is maybe by government or by individual or owner of this heritage building. Yeah, and he wants to know about what lesson learned from Europe, maybe about the financial of heritage conservation. And this question addressed to Mr. Nebojša.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for the question. I think this is also a question that is relevant regarding the presentation that we heard from Professor Kurniati as well about this kind of financing scheme. So I'm also curious about how Professor Kurniati is going to see this phenomena. But as far as I know, it's about this again the burden of local population who lives in the heritage buildings. As far as I understood the question, right? That's this question. And if there are some incentives from the local government, or that's the question, right? If I understood well. Yeah, well, I think this is again also very local issue. It is again an issue of the local community, of the local local governments, how they are going to deal with this kind of cases. And of course, we have here also the public interest that is included. So like it's not only that the responsibility of this kind of heritage buildings are in the or should stay in the hands of the people who live in them, if they are so important for the overall community, for their memory and identity. And I know about quite a lot of different schemes, especially also in Germany, where this kind of buildings, or let's say like people who live in them, are supported through this kind of tax revenues, and they gain some kind of let's say some kind of like funds from the taxpayers in order to like restore this kind of buildings. For my home country of Serbia, let's say this was an issue for a long time, because my country had also like quite a long political and economical crisis, and it was very difficult to restore some kind of historical buildings in its original state, especially for the residents themselves. It was very costly. At the same time, the rules and regulations were not like getting lower, so to say. They were like equally strong as they were in the times of a welfare state, let's say this way. And until the local government of my home city, let's say, for example, made some kind of decisions to help and support this kind of people who live in this kind of buildings that are important for the public interest. Until then, these buildings were simply left to deteriorate because it was extremely costly to meet all the requirements of the heritage authorities. So this is also, like, as I said, coming back to this kind of political nature and political question of heritage. It is again like in hands of local government, in hands of this kind of higher instances of government, in order to find out solution for how to deal with this issue of residents having this kind of a challenge. But I'm also like curious about the perspective from Professor Kurniati about it, especially in the area that she was working with.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Nebojša. Maybe from Ibu Rina, can you add in some idea or answer this question about the financial of heritage conservation, maybe, Ibu Rina?
Especially in this area that she was working at.
Especially in Alton Semarang, yeah. Ibu Rina, it's still mute. Ibu.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Mr. Nebojša, maybe I want to know, is there a policy in Germany for urban heritage areas, referring to UNESCO or ICOMOS? Are there incentive and disincentive in the management of urban heritage preservation?
Oh, it's a question for me. I had a question. Also. I had a question for you as well.
Oh, sorry.
Doesn't matter. Well, I think I also like replied most of this question back. Like there are no really incentives from this kind of authorities at the international level. This also comes mostly from the local or national government, and it goes usually over this kind of tax reductions and taxpayers. But I'm curious, how is this question of restoring heritage buildings that usually is very costly for the residents? How is it solved in the Semarang, in this case area that you worked at?
Yeah, maybe Rina can explain about the condition in Alton Semarang. Yeah, Rina. Is there any, like you already asked to Nebojša about the incentive and disincentive in several buildings in Semarang? Because actually the local government give a special tax for the old buildings, but it is not it is not easy, to get the incentive like that. Every years it is already reviewed by the local government, and it is not like a continuous program, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe we are still learning, still in learning process about that.
Yes, thank you very much for this insight. But this is also something that is also like strengthening this, what we also discussed, Professor Kurniati as well in her lecture, this kind of necessity to make also heritage preservation, if you wanted to make it sustainable, more inclusive as well. It's also this implements these elements of public interest, I would say, because some of the heritage buildings are also elements of public interest, and we as society also need to like be aware that we need to preserve it and include it into some kind of management sustainable schemes. But thanks for the reply.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Mr. Nebojša, Ibu Adita. And we move to maybe last question, yeah, Mr. Nebojša and Ibu Rina. Okay, it is from David Suwarno. Yeah, David asked to Mr. Nebojša. He was really intrigued about the idea of fake heritage building. Yeah, and can a fake heritage building be hazardous and undermine the original heritage building itself? And if it can, how can we make sure that the fake heritage building can be used as maximum as possible to increase the existence of the true heritage building? Okay, it is like fake versus true heritage building, yeah, Mr. Okay,
yes.
Please, Mr. Nebojša.
Yeah, this is a question from Vahio, as far as I see. Hi, Vahio, my student also from TU Darmstadt. I hope you're fine. Thanks for the interesting question. Yes, this is a very, very interesting and relevant question. Fake heritage, a big topic, right? And my personal standpoint is I do like to adopt always this kind of a very critical standpoint, but I do not like to take a look at things happening in our societies or in cities in a black and white perspective. And this is something that I always avoid. I always, even though of course I have my own personal opinion, and especially when this fake heritage of Frankfurt Old City has been constructed, I was very critical about it as a planner and as an academic as well. But you know, at the end of the day, when you take a look how this project has been implemented, the implementation of this project was following very, very elaborate participatory ways of planning. There is quite a lot of there were quite a lot of open meetings. There were quite a lot of debates, public debates, reports in the media. There was quite a strong organization coming from the grassroots sector, non-governmental organization, that was advocating for implementation of this project. And at the end, it is, let's say, people's choice, people's will. And today, nowadays, like when you go to this old historical city of Frankfurt, you can hear different opinions. You can hear people going around and saying like terrible, disaster, why did they do this and stuff? But you can also hear people who are in fond of it, right? And my opinion now changed towards these initiatives to the perspective that every group of stakeholders in a city do need to be heard, you know, and if this was a voice of a certain majority of the people or some kind of very organized group of people, then this is something that definitely needed to be done. And this is something that can also be classified under some kind of sustainable planning and sustainable decision-making for the city. Regarding fake heritage, if it can put the originality, let's say, of the original heritage, definitely, yes. But this is also like something that deserves like a double answer, let's say like this. For example, on the one hand, yes, when you mix new, original, let's say, authentic heritage with fake heritage, you're undermining the relevance of the real, of the authentic. And this is one of these kind of rules of heritage preservation, that every time when you have some kind of intervention in the existing environment, you have to be very loud about it, that it is a new intervention. If you remember this picture from reconstruction of the Dresden church, Frauenkirche in Dresden, there is very clear that there is a division between the original part of the church and this kind of addition that needed to be reconstructed after the Second World War. And that was the praxis that was previously very often mobilized. I think in the recent years, this praxis is kind of disappearing from the city, which is creating quite a lot of danger of recognizing what is real and what is fake. This is what happened also in the case of Frankfurt Altstadt. There are some, in German they call it Spolien. These are like some kind of elements after the destruction of the city that were preserved and stored in the museum. But when these buildings were reconstructed, these original elements were put back on its place. So sometimes you cannot really like distinguish what is the original part and what is the new one, you know, because of this, of the loss of this kind of process of emphasizing what is new and what is old. And again, as I'm saying, like you're underestimating the importance of the real. But on the other hand, with this kind of intervention in cities, we're not only producing some kind of heritage that is fake, that is not real, that is just reconstructing the image, but we're at the same time also getting back some memories. And memories are important for the society. Memories are important for the identity of the local communities. So when we are producing this kind of fake heritage that is based on some kind of heritage that was once there, then we are also addressing reconstruction of this kind of memories, which can be good, which can be positive part for identification of a local community as such, right? Maybe it's not the good way to like reconstruct everything as it was before, but there are some alternative forms on how to bridge this. One of them was also this kind of digital approach that we discussed at the very beginning. There was this very interesting question about digital reconstruction of this destroyed built heritage. And by this digital reconstruction, you're not actually making any damage in the built urban space, but at the same time, you are documenting, you're keeping it preserved as a memory, and you can also like visit and use it through this kind of a 3D digital technology. So that would be a bit more elaborate answer. Sorry for that, but I hope that it responded to what you wanted to find out, Wahyu.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Mr. Nebojša. Maybe we have 2 minutes left, yeah, for discussion session. Maybe, is it okay when question later? Ibu Rina, Mr. Nebojša, is it okay?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, okay. Okay, I will read one question, yeah, from chat box. That is from Amar Sidik, yeah. He wants us to Rina and Mr. Nebojša, and the question is about heritage tourism, yeah. Amar have an argument if in the heritage tourism, in the some context of difficult to restore because of the high density population or high density settlement surrounding the heritage building or maybe heritage environment. And what do you think? Yeah, the question is, what do you think about the effort of the local government, especially to take advantage of this potential, because there are several tourism potential are less attractive in the context of heritage area. Okay, please, Mr. Nebojša and Rina.
Okay, should I start? I think we discussed quite a lot about this already. And I think, according to my opinion, in the times that we live in this kind of importance of local governments to be also entrepreneurial in a way, the importance and the this kind of task and obligation of local government, I think it's crucial. These kind of initiatives do have to come from this kind of a local government level, from the grassroots level, maybe from some kind of collaboration between local government and local stakeholders in order some kind of heritage themes to be recognized as such, and to be included into some kind of a cultural management or development schemes. At the end of the day, like even if you want to, like even if you have such an amazing heritage in your city, and if you want to include it as a community in the list, for example, of UNESCO World Heritage Site, you have to apply for it as a local community, right? No one is gonna pull your sleeve to like, okay, like do something with it. Sometimes even happen this as well, of course, But I think the role and responsibility of the local community is crucial here.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Nebojša. Maybe from Ibu Rina, please.
Okay, thank you for the question. There are many royal cultural products in Indonesia, many of which have been damaged and difficult to excavate. Ensure that the regional government has regional regulation to determine preservation must go through research so that can be used as a guide in preservation. And maybe the cultural product, royal cultural product, have OUV or outstanding universal value. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Ibu Rina. I think the time duration for discussion is finish. So let me conclude for our ILS today about urban heritage conservation. Maybe I have 3 points, three important points in here. First, I think sustainable heritage not only about the physical context or built environment conservation, but also include cultural, local community, and it will, I think, support SDGs context, or SDGs goals for number 3 and number 11, to make the historical area or maybe urban heritage conservation go to health and well-being context, and also how to make it sustain for urban development and community, And the second point is about how is the challenges, challenges for gain sustainable heritage, as a huge factor to conserve the urban heritage area. The challenges, it is about imbalance tourism, maybe tourism not only good for conservation, but also it will make maybe destroy the physical building, or maybe about the role, or maybe about the function of the historical building. So it is maybe make imbalance tourism. And the next challenges is about climate change. I think I'm very agree about it, because in Semarang, Alton city Semarang, it is also have a problem about the climate change, And the next challenges is about underrepresented context, And the last is about political context. I think the political context is related to Kevin Law question, about the financial context, about the how to manage or how to conserve it, I think political context, it will make imbalance development, if urban development not suitable with the heritage context. And the last point, for our ILS today is, I think from Ibu Rina about climate sensitive urban design, in Alton Samara, it is such as as role model to solve urban heritage problem in the context of climate change, with addition or adding of vegetation, and it will make radiation level down until 30%. So I think it is like a concept, implemented concept to conserve the urban heritage, from climate change challenges, Okay, I think our discussion and our session is finished, over. Thank you very much, to our speaker today, Mr. Nebojša and Ibu Rina, for nice and interesting presentation. Thank you very much for the sharing today in ILS event. I hope, Mr. Nebojša, Ibu Rina, and all participants are always success and stay healthy. And before we close our ILS today, we make a photo session first. I think Mbak Intan will help me to capture the photo session. Mbak, are you ready?
Yes, to all participants, you can open your camera, and I will.
Yeah. Hello, Nebojša. How are you?
Hi, Ivan. How are you?
Yeah. So you look great. Everything's okay?
Yes, nice to see you again after a while.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
nice to see you again.
Oh, yeah, okay. I will take the pictures. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Thank you for all participants. Novia.
Yeah, there are several students here. Mbak Wahyu, Francisca, Dini.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's a big
Mundus
community.
Urbano.
It's a big community that we have everywhere, especially in Indonesia.
Thank you, Nebojša.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Nebojša.
Sorry.
Yeah.
thank you, Bu Rina.
Everyone. Thank you, Nebo. Terima kasih, Bu Rina.
Okay, Auf Wiedersehen. Tschüss.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.